Incoming heavy mortars proved the Iraqis still had plenty of fight left. Aggressive patrolling on the edge of the town also yielded information about enemy formations. It was a dangerous little job, but necessary before commanders would commit troops to the final moves to retake Khafji. Recapture of ground the Allies had surprisingly lost was a job given to the Arab forces. The Saudi National Guardsmen in their US-built M60 tanks rolled back up the coast road to reoccupy the town. In a typical diplomatic gesture, General Schwarzkopf ensured that the credit would be earned by and given to the Saudi and Qatari forces deployed in that area. Inside the town, wrecked and blackened armoured vehicles. Their destruction bore witness to the ferocity of the battle over what Allied commanders simply referred to as an insignificant village. Some of the Iraqi armour had been hit with pinpoint accuracy by artillery fire called in by this US Marine. Corporal Chuck Ingram's trapped on a roof in Al-Khafji, coolly spotted while Iraqis searched below.
I feel proud that I did my job, but I was scared to death. Honest truth, scared to death.
The victorious Saudis swept through Al-Khafji, past blackened buildings where Iraqi snipers had hidden, past the smoke column marking the Iraqi attack on the local oil refinery. US Marines congratulated the Saudi troops, though there were worries that everyone had been caught napping.
How are you? Congratulations. Good job. Congratulations, yes, very good.
Schwarzkopf summed up in typically trenchant style.
No, I don't think they were taken by surprise. As I said, there was nobody. Khafji had been abandoned. I wouldn't really say the Iraqis had seized Khafji. You know, when you walk into an uninhabited place, it's really not much of a seizure.
When the ground offensive finally began, Arab forces moved direct into Kuwait along 3 axes, backed by United States Marines, not from the sea but along the coast. In the west, the Desert Rats and the United States 7th Corps struck at the heart of the elite Republican Guard. After the surprise at Al-Khafji, the Allies stepped up mechanized aggressive patrolling. The 16th, 5th Queen's Lancers take out their reconnaissance tanks, last in service in the Falklands, to probe Iraqi dispositions. A real desert rat, Pedro, adopted by the British contingent as their mascot, naturally. Alongside the desert rats, the Americans heard a chilling lecture about the danger of mines.
He owns anywhere from 10 to 20 million mines. We know he's got at least 10 million. We got pocket receipts on 14 million that he bought. Everybody was supplying him. He was our ally till August. We gave him a bunch of stuff. The Kuwaitis gave him money to go buy state-of-the-art. The Saudis gave him money to buy state-of-the-art. He also went out with his own money. He's got toe poppers, he's got claymores, he's got poppers out there. He's got signal flares. If you get up to some fence, you can guarantee it there's a mine in it. He was buying these in lots of 300,000 for $4.80. This detonator has a built-in anti-handling device, a mercury switch. You pick this mine up, it goes off. You eat 5 pounds of explosives. Explosives in the human body don't get along. This ain't the war to be out there playing Rambo.
It's estimated that 3/4 of US casualties in Vietnam were from mines, hence the concern to be properly briefed.
I didn't realize he had so many types, but we knew that he had a lot of mines out there.
They've got a pretty formidable minefield, but we're not going to be stupid about it. We're not just going to send a human wave through this thing.
He's got a lot of them from a lot of countries. Who let him get them, we don't know, but we're going to have to deal with them now.
The Viper mine clearance device was now on active service. There was one more effort to persuade Iraqi troops not to fight to the end. More leaflets were dropped advising surrender. The few who did surrender, dots on a desert horizon, were herded together by Chinook helicopters. On the very eve of the final battle, the British Desert Rats, the 1st Armoured Division comprising the 4th and 7th Brigades, posed for a dramatic team picture. For the Desert Rats, it was the ultimate parade. Early on February the 24th, the waiting was over, the preparation done. Allied land forces went into full action against the Iraqis. Among those driving into battle, Brigadier Christopher Hammerbeck, commander of the 4th Armoured Brigade. Out on the western flank of the Allied positions, the British and French, linking with the 1st US Armoured Division, thrust across the enemy's land, not into Kuwait as the Iraqis had expected, but northward into Iraq itself. Later they'd wheel round, slicing across the north of Kuwait to trap as much of the occupying force as possible. The attack turned into a classic dash. Opposition was, in Schwarzkopf's own words, remarkably light. Inside the British Army's new warrior fighting vehicle, battle taxis the men prefer to call them, the mechanised infantry prepared for their job, at its most severe, killing enemy soldiers in their foxholes.
We're killing on a personal basis. The guys up the top there are killing people from kilometres away. We have to get out and actually clear the places, obviously the grenade, the rifle and the bayonet, if need be.
Does it worry you, the thought of using the bayonet?
Well, no, I've got loved ones back home and I want to get back to them as much as the rest of the guys, so I'm prepared to do anything to get back home.
Another new piece of equipment, the multiple launch rocket system, the battle winner the troops call this, capable of firing ripples of 12 rockets, each containing 644 fragmentation bombs to smash artillery positions and tanks. Not far behind, barrages from more conventional artillery, the Abbott self-propelled howitzers. The artillery commander assessed his men's contribution to Saddam's mother of battles.
From the reports that we had from an aircraft overhead that reported several battery positions badly damaged and some tanks destroyed, it must have created exactly the effect that we wanted at this stage, which is to destroy his long-range systems.
What through your mind as you were firing for an action for the first time?
A bit of excitement.
The battle moved fast. The order to advance could catch anyone unawares. The weather could still hamper the swiftest moves, but it was time to pause to think very carefully about the next step. The commander of the whole 1st Armoured Division, Major General Rupert Smith, with beret and bespectacled, briefed his senior officers on the decisive engagement, at night with the Republican Guard. There'd been much talk before the ground assault about the Allies' night-fighting superiority. Here the equipment proved itself beyond all doubt. The pattern was a repeat of the daytime experience. The 1st Armoured would usually identify an enemy tank and destroy it, with almost no return fire. And usually the Iraqi crews had scrambled out and surrendered. Daylight, and it was time to consult the maps to chart the course across the barren wasteland following the battle plan, a long right-hand swing down into the north and centre of Kuwait. To their left, the French and Americans had continued pushing deep into Iraq itself. They too were largely unopposed. In the distance, the prisoners began turning up in larger and larger numbers as Iraq's military crumbled away. Everywhere the wreckage of their army. The British destroyed 200 Republican Guard tanks, losing none themselves. Some had lucky escapes. The crew of this reconnaissance tank escaped unhurt when an American plane mistakenly attacked them. Then came tragedy. The Desert Rats heard that 9 British soldiers, the youngest 17, died when another American plane hit a Warrior vehicle.
We was about 30 metres away in the wagon, waiting for the guns to be blown. And there was just a mass explosion which blew us back in the turret. And then when we looked out and seen the wagon had been hit, we moved round in front of the wagon to help with the casualties.
We took a knock yesterday. You're all grown men. You're all soldiers. And we go on. I'm very proud of you last night. It didn't seem to affect what we did in the slightest. So thank you very much indeed. At last, somebody, us, you, me, are teaching a bad guy the lesson. And he's being put down so hard that he's not going to get up again.
Soldiers are killed by their own side in all wars. This time, though, the enemy killed so very few. The 1st Armoured Division pushed on into Kuwait. Here, the 7th Brigade neutralised an Iraqi divisional HQ.
There's clearly evidence in the bunkers of guys just having Baghdad. I mean, there's teapots on, hot tea, smoke coming out, evidence of food, which has probably only been there in the last 24 hours.
Waving anything white, tossing aside their helmets, the bedraggled, dispirited remains of Saddam's forces walked into captivity.
And they would give you something to eat, something to drink, and wait for some other people to come and collect you, to take you to somewhere to stay.
Some officers have been shot by their own men, others abandoned them and fled home.
Well, if it was me, I think I feel a bit sorry for them, really, because the way they've been treated, I mean, you wouldn't treat a dog. The way I've seen some of the prisoners of wars, which we have on the way up as well. No, it's not fair for them.
They hadn't been paid for months or fed for days.
Well, it's been a long 48 hours since we crossed the start line. And really, I think for all of us, it's been a step into the total unknown, an experience which none of us will ever forget.
Across Kuwait's southern border, the Americans stormed through the sand defence walls the Iraqis had thrown up. They proved no protection at all as the 1st and 2nd US Marine Divisions raced into the emirate. Infantrymen fanned out, looking for individual defenders. There were hardly any. Close behind, a pipe fascine. The pipes fill up anti-tank ditches in seconds, making the going much easier for backup armour. For the foot soldiers, their hour had now come.
The Air Force can't do it all by themselves. They've been doing a good job, but the ground forces, they got to go in. Because I feel that the only person to get another person out of the foxhole is the infantryman.
I really don't care about oil. I don't care about material things. You know, I'm here so my little brothers won't be in 10 years.
Apache attack helicopters. These were the machines that proved so deadly effective in knocking out tanks and other Iraqi vehicles in close combat. Aptly named Hellfire missiles, which enabled the Apaches to tear through armour cladding after skimming across the desert to find their targets, prompting some Iraqi response. Artillery duels developed, but once more, US firepower proved overwhelming. Mechanized infantry poured rapidly across the border, with Kuwaiti advisors aboard to guide their American liberators across the featureless terrain. America's most up-to-date tank, the M1, able, like the British Challenger, to fire on the move. They were deployed to take on the one part of Saddam's army that might have been effective, the Republican Guard. The Allies began spotting burning oil wells, the first evidence of Iraq's horrendous scorched earth campaign as its forces fell back. The desert's own natural storms had uncovered a vast number of mines sowed by the Iraqis. America used Miklik mine clearers to satisfying effect. Once the mines had been cleared, the Americans moved forward again, past the hulks of hundreds of shattered Soviet-made Iraqi tanks. It had been less of a battle, more a massacre of machinery. Iraqi prisoners poured out of their foxholes, almost pitiful in their relief at being able to give up after the long nightmare of bombardment. These conscripts were obviously terrified that their captors would shoot them out of hand. The ritual search for concealed weapons. Their war over, captives in their thousands were taken away on the transporters that had brought the American tanks to the battlefield. US servicemen found it all astonishing.
There's just nothing like it. It's the biggest 4th of July show you've ever seen. And to see those tanks just boom, and more stuff just keeps spewing out of them, and the shells flying on the ground, and they just become white hot.
However, war's savage unpredictability was proved again when, in the midst of the Allies' land attack, a Scud missile came down on an American Army barracks near the important Allied base at Dhahran in Saudi Arabia. It was the single most costly incident suffered by the United States. 28 reservists died. Yet it was an incident that did nothing to shake America's absolute faith that the Allies' course was right, that Iraq's army must be shattered, faith shared throughout the coalition.
We are continuing to attack and continue to achieve tremendous success against the Iraqi forces in the KTO.
The coalition attack continues to meet with success on the ground, in the air, and at sea.
The battle is going extremely well.
It has taken our regiments only 36 hours to neutralize an enemy division.
The Americans and the Europeans played key roles. But equally crucial were the Arab forces. And it was the Arab armies who dashed across the desert wastes, heading for the central objective of Operation Desert Storm. That was the retaking of Kuwait City itself. The Kuwaiti forces, like their Iraqi oppressors, were equipped with the latest Russian tanks, the T-72s. And of all the Arabs, the Kuwaitis themselves were understandably the most delighted, as resistance faded away and the retaking of their homeland became merely a matter of time, and a short time at that. However, it wasn't all a matter of driving fast to the end of the road. Sometimes the Iraqis slowed things up. The spearhead Arab armour edged out of range of Iraq's big guns. And in case the Iraqis still called down air power, French-built anti-aircraft missiles were brought to the front. Tuesday, February the 26th, the first Arab forces reached Kuwait City itself. The Iraqis, after a final outburst of looting and destruction, had gone. 7 months of occupation were over. There was jubilation as the Kuwaiti flag, prohibited since early August, was unfurled again.
If it had been our intention to take Iraq, if it had been our intention to destroy the country, if it had been our intention to overrun the country, we could have done it unopposed.
If I've got one message for the people at home today, it's this. Get out there and ring your church bells.
Victory was overwhelming. At a disused airfield inside Allied-held southern Iraq, the victors arrived to dictate peace terms.
How do you feel today, sir?
Well, I'll let you know when the meeting's over.
Right.
I'm feeling pretty good.
General Schwarzkopf, mastermind of a brilliantly successful campaign, determined protocol be observed.
Now, I don't want them embarrassed in any way, all right?
No, sir.
Inside a tent pitched on the desert sands, Schwarzkopf sat alongside the commander of the combined Arab forces, the Saudi General Khalid bin Sultan, facing Iraq's 2 most senior army commanders. They agreed all the Allied terms. Their army and much of the country they'd tried to extinguish had been shattered. Allies had suffered, of course, but on nothing like the scale some had feared. Iraq's revenge as its army collapsed was to set ablaze hundreds of Kuwait's oil wells. Out on the road north to Basra, one more nightmare. A convoy of fleeing Iraqis devastated in the last Allied air attack of the war. Behind in Kuwait City, the devastation wrought by the Iraqi invaders. The proof began emerging of just how brutal Iraq had been. Some of those suspected of collaboration were rounded up. Saddam Hussein's dream of conquest had been destroyed, but Kuwaiti vigilantes continued for several days to hunt down Iraqi troops still in hiding.
Proud day for America. By God, we've kicked Vietnam syndrome once and for all. Thank you very, very much.